All right, welcome everybody. So today I want to walk you through um, data source variables. And today I'm just going to be showing you how to pull information from Salesforce and display it into the start form on your Nintex Workflow Cloud workflow that you're creating. Instead of having somebody that's working with this form to have to type in all this information, worry about misspellings, any of that type of stuff. We can pull it directly from your system of record and display it here on the form. So for example, let me just select one of my accounts here, and then we'll select a case number, and you'll see it pulls all that information directly right back into the form. So I am going to include this information in the blog post that I'm also creating with this to go along with this video. You'll see right here in the center all of these supported sources where we can pull that data and pre-populate that initial start form. So you'll see Salesforce listed right over here, which is the one we're going through today. But you'll notice, SharePoint Online, Google Sheets, Google Docs, Azure Active Directory. If you wanted to pull some Active Directory information about the person into that form, something like that, you definitely can. But let's go back over here and we'll kind of talk about how we built this, how we set this up. All right, so if we go to the design part of the actual form here, you'll notice we have two drop downs up here at the top. Those are just data lookup controls. So if I select one of these, you'll see it's just a data lookup, and I'm displaying the account name in the drop down, but the value is actually the account ID, and there's a reason for that I'll talk about here in just a minute. But you'll need to set up your data source configuration here. So you'll see I have one for account names. And let me select that. And if you don't have data source already set up, you'll have to go to your data sources and create a data source to connect out to Salesforce. You'll notice I have three different ones here, one for the account name, one for the case information, and then one for the contact information. So if you're familiar with Salesforce, some of the contact information is separate from some of the other data in the actual account. And stuff like that. So kind of had to set that up separately, but I'll give you a quick look at my data sources here. So for the account names in that first dropdown, you'll see I just gave it a data source name, description, set up my connection here with my credentials that I want to use to connect to Salesforce. And then the object that I want to pull back, you'll see if I click this, you'll see all of the different objects are available here that you can select from. So if you wanted to pull back opportunity data or something like that, you definitely can do that as well. And you'll notice the fields that I want to pull back here are just the account name and account ID that I'm going to use in that dropdown. So that's for this particular account name dropdown. And then we have that completely set up over here. And then for the case number, you'll notice the option label is we're going to display the case number, and we're going to use the case number as our value. And if we go over here and look, we do have a filter on this one, and that's where that account ID is coming from. So the account ID that we're pulling back in the case number, we want that to be equal to the value that's in the account name field over here, which, if you remember in the dropdown, the way we set the value in the dropdown is account ID. So we're comparing those two, and that way we get that cascading action there. So when I select the account, it pulls back just the cases related to that account. So once we get our account number, case number set up there, we are able to start working on our data source variables, or what we want to pull back and display in the form here. So you'll notice we have the external data tab here. I'm going to click on that, and then you'll notice I have two of them set up here already. But if you're starting from scratch, you would just go here, create your data source variable, give it a name. You would need to have the data source set up first. So figure out which data sources you're going to need to create those first, and then they'll be available here for you to use in the dropdown, or you can go and create it as you're going. And you'll notice, again, I showed you the ones that I had for like the cases here. Let's go ahead and just open that one up. One thing I'll point out in the data source for the cases, give that a second to load, is you will want to just select all the fields that you want to pull back. Again, that's just a drop down. You can select any of the fields here that are available, and you can set those in there. So those are the fields we want to display on the form. When we're doing the data source variables, have those available for us to use. Excuse me. And then we'll just look at the contact one as well, while we have the data sources open here. And you'll see we have full name, account ID, contact ID is the information we're going to pull back from the contact information. You could pull back other fields that maybe you want to display, phone numbers, any of that type of information, departments, emails, any of that other information that you might want to display on the form. You could select those. I only really wanted the full name out of that, so that's why I only selected that one. And then if we go back to our data source here, cancel that guy. I'm going to edit this particular one I already have created. You'll notice inside here, we are filtering it on the case number. So what we're going to do is base it on the case number in the dropdown, and we're going to filter it on the case number that we have available there. That way we only get back the information we want, one record basically for that particular case. And if we look at that, you'll see we have the first record, which really is the only record that we're going to get back. If we click on that and then we click on fields, here's all of those fields we select to pull back from that data source. And then all of these variables are going to be available for us to use on that form. And I'll show you how I set that up here in just a second. But let's go back over and we'll look at the contact name as well. We'll just edit that one real quick. And you'll see we are filtering that on the contact ID. So this contact ID is coming from the other case information. So the case information does have a contact ID. So it's going to look at that first, and then it's going to find the contact ID and pull back just that record for that particular contact ID. Again, we're only going to have one record coming back, so we're going to look at the first record and the fields, and we're just pulling back full name, contact ID, which again, that's what we're filtering on. We don't necessarily need the account ID here. I just pulled it back just to validate things. But this is the one we're going to use the full name to display on the form. All right, so now we have our external data, and that's configured for just the pieces we wanted to pull back. If you had more, you just go and create another data source variable for that information you want to pull back. And then what we're going to do is on the actual form itself, you'll notice I have just a bunch of different labels on here with the information inside it that I want to display. So basically all you have to do is just drag your label onto the form, click into your label, go to the insert section here, right up here at the top, that insert blue tab. And then you'll notice we have an external data section right here on the left-hand side on the bottom. I'm going to select that. And then here's my external data sources that we just created. And what I can do is I just open that up again, like we looked at before, the first record, the field, find which field I want to put in that label. Let's just say we want to put email in there, and there it is, contact email in the label. And I can even come in here and do contact email, and that way we have some information here. So when the form loads, we know what that is. I could bold that if I wanted to. And now you have that set up on your form. So you just go through for each particular piece that you want to display on the form. You just add the labels in there, and then you have your form set up and ready to go. And again, like we did in the, like I showed you in the beginning, if I preview that, you'll see, let's just select a different one here, select a different case number, and you'll see that pulls that information back and preloads it in there. And then if you had I don't have a workflow behind this one, but let's say you wanted to send, you had an open case here that you wanted to send to somebody. You could maybe have a field down here at the bottom. Hey, I'm assigning this task to you or this case to you to have you, work with the customer to get that resolved. So if you wanted to pull back as much of that case data and send it off, for a task for somebody, you definitely could do that. You would just hit submit, kick that workflow off. So that is data source variables. Again, this one is from Salesforce, so I just wanted to kind of show that for you. It was a kind of a big ask for us. People wanted to be able to show information or pull back information from line of business systems. Salesforce was one of the bigger ones that we'd heard. So now we have that available, and yeah, nice nice feature, being able to pull that information back, fill it in without having to worry about having somebody type all that information in. Thank you very much.